So the American Conservative is out with a controversial piece here. The title is Trump 2028. The 22nd Amendment is an arbitrary restraint on presidents who serve non-consecutive terms and on democracy itself. So, for those of you who don't know the history of this, it was after FDR that the Republicans wanted to do the 22nd Amendment. And the reason why they wanted to do it is because they felt like, hey man, we can't beat this guy. We can't beat this guy. So we need to give ourselves an opportunity by kicking his ass out of office, effectively. So he had 4 terms. He served 4 terms. That's how much the American people loved him. And by the way, it made sense. It made sense. The guy helped us defeat the Nazis. The guy helped us through the Great Depression and did the New Deal. Really made America at a time when we could have gone full fascist. Instead, he turned the car around and made us a social democracy. So it makes sense that he won so much. And if you go back and look at some of his Republican challengers, what's really interesting is FDR's power was so strong, his force was so immense that Republicans felt like they needed to be like him. So a guy named Wendell Willkie who ran against him, a lot of the things he was saying was similar to FDR. Because they were like, hey, it's almost like when you can't beat him, join him kind of thing. So there was a general agreement on the welfare state being a thing, right? The government taking care of the basics. It was like the era of big government is here, not the Reagan, the era of big government is over type stuff. It was a totally different time in American history. So that's why they came up with the 22nd Amendment. Now, even though Republicans came up with it, even though it was a nefarious reason, they wanted to make sure FDR couldn't stay in there longer, right? I kind of agree. I kind of like the 2-term rule for presidents. And the reason I say that is I think every country, to the extent you fear sliding into authoritarianism, a rule like that can absolutely prevent one single president from becoming, say, a Putin like in Russia, right? Or like an Erdogan in Turkey. By the way, to be fair, Erdogan, his party lost horribly in local elections just the other night. But he's still in office. He still has years left in office. But it really prevents the worst case scenario of somebody who really shouldn't be there, who ends up being there for 30 years or whatever. So I actually kind of agree with that, even though it is definitionally undemocratic. But that's the history of the 22nd Amendment. Now, the reason why these people are calling for getting rid of the 22nd Amendment is because they want Trump 2028. That's what they're saying. So really, in their instance, it doesn't stem from, a true belief in democracy. It stems from, we want a dictator Donald Trump. That's what we want. And we know that because, guys, how many times have we seen? Whenever these red states vote, for example, on abortion rights, they always are for abortion rights, and then you have the Republican politicians in those states trying to overturn the will of the people. They've done that with $15 minimum wage direct ballot initiatives, where it's passed, and then the Republicans are like, well, let's kind of try to overthrow that. So it's not like a principled stance favor democracy. It's more of we want an emperor, and we want that emperor to be Trump. That's why they're making this argument. Okay, but let me read you some of this here. As the primary season has shown us, the Republicans have not moved on from Trump. Yet the 22nd Amendment works to constrain their enthusiasm by prohibiting them from rewarding Trump with re-election 4 years from now. This is plainly unfair. Indeed, there has long been support for axing the 22nd Amendment due to the artificial limits it places on voter choice. Many popular presidents have agreed. In 1985, the Washington Post reported that Ronald Reagan supported repealing the amendment, saying in private remarks that the lame duck label being applied to his second term left him feeling handicapped. In 2016, Barack Obama told David Axelrod that he was sure he would have coasted to a third term if such a thing were permissible. I'm confident in this vision because I'm confident that if I had run again and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized the majority of the American people to rally behind it. The case of Donald Trump, however, makes an even more forceful ethical argument against the 22nd Amendment and for its repeal. If a man who was once president returns after a series of years to stand again for the office and prove so popular as to earn a second non-consecutive term, as Trump seems bound to do, to deny him the right to run for a second consecutive term cuts against basic fair play. I don't think that's a very strong argument. If by 2028 voters feel Trump has done a poor job, they can pick another candidate. But if they feel he has delivered on his promises, why shouldn't they be denied the freedom to choose him once more? Don't let questions of Trump's age in 4 years fool you. I don't think that's a particularly good argument. By the way, even the idea that it's a given that Trump's going to win, that's not true. They're almost dead even in the polls now. Biden had a slate of good polls come out in his direction. They're almost dead even, dead tied. One of the problems for Trump is that in all of the actual primary races, he was underperforming by 7 to 10 points. So the votes were still going to Nikki Haley even after she dropped out. It was sort of like a fuck you from the Republicans who are just not down with Trump anymore. So the idea is foregone conclusion. He's going to win in 4 years, and then, he'll definitely be one of 4 more years after that. There's a lot of assumptions there that I think are pretty extreme and not based on the evidence. Besides the glaringly obvious differences between the men in their brain power, physical strength, and the ability to walk in a straight line, Trump and Biden are about 4 years apart, making this issue something of a wash. If Trump wins in November and he would be eligible to run for re-election in 2028, he would be 82 years old during that election, the same age Biden will be later this year. And at the end of Trump's hypothetical second consecutive term in 2032, he would be 86, the same age Biden would be at the end of his second term if he's... So, oh my God, is this guy thinking even beyond 2028? Conservatives have gritted their teeth for years as the left, in their hatred of Trump, have attempted to pervert the meaning of first the 25th Amendment and more recently the 14th Amendment. The case for repealing the 22nd Amendment is far more straightforward. As with prohibition, it is simply a matter of finding the will to get rid of a bad idea that needlessly limits Americans' freedom. Trump in 2028. So here's the thing. I do acknowledge, because Crystal and I have talked about this too, I actually do think this is an interesting debate and discussion to have, because there is a legitimate case for repealing the 22nd Amendment. The argument basically goes something like this. It is literally more democratic. Like, if you want the people to decide shit, then let the people fucking decide shit, right? And, like, we don't have term limits in the Senate. That's why Bernie Sanders has been in there since, like, 1812. And, like, I kind of like that Bernie's been in there for that long, right? So in some instances, I can see, yeah, the more democratic position makes more sense to me, because I generally love democracy, right? So that's a fair argument. But I also think my argument still stands, too, that when it comes to that ultimate office, the presidency, the most powerful office in the land, I do want to, like, safeguard against any potential Putin-like scenario or Erdogan-like scenario or Gaddafi-like scenario, or whatever. Fill in the blank with whatever authoritarian you want to mention. Have somebody rule for 30 years, 40 years. I just feel like that you can become ever more corrupt and ever more powerful the longer you're in there, and then it becomes self-perpetuating, and it's actually, even though in theory it might be democratic, at some point it's not really democratic. It's just the status quo churning along and that person holding power, right? So there is a reasonable conversation to have. I still lean a little more on the side of I like the 22nd Amendment, but having said all of that, look, at the end of the day, it would be hilarious if they actually repealed the 22nd Amendment. You want to know why? Because we'd get a third term of President Obama. That's definitely what happened. Now, you guys know me. I have massive issues with President Obama, and I've gone through them ad nauseum on this show. In fact, I did an old segment called Obama's Report Card, where I went through all the good things I thought he did and all the bad things I thought he did, and there was a lot, okay? But facts are facts, and his poll numbers were always really fucking solid. And in retrospect, they're even higher. So what would happen if you had Obama versus Trump in an election? Trump would get blown the fuck out, bro. It wouldn't even be close. He's got the exact right sort of disposition and demeanor that sort of diffuses an unhinged weirdo like Trump and makes it so, like, his nonsense will look like nonsense. He'd get flamed, dog. He would get flamed. So ironically, if they were to even get the thing, like, careful what you wish for. That's what this is. Because, okay, all right, you want to do that? You want to get rid of the 22nd Amendment? Watch what happens. Boom. Third term of Obama. It wouldn't be a third term of Trump. That's for damn sure. So, I don't know. Like I said, careful what you wish for. I'm curious what all you guys think, right? I'm curious if just the fact this is coming from the American conservative and we know that they're just in the Trump cult and that's why they want the 2028 thing. Does that lead you to believe, like, fuck them? No. Or removing the whole Trump angle from it, I'm curious, just in theory, do you like the idea of the 22nd Amendment? Do you like the idea of the 2-term limit for president of the United States? Or are you more on Crystal's side where it's like, it is undemocratic and I don't like it for that reason? I'm very curious what you guys think. Let me know. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.